Man, Jim, how you doing, bro?
How you feeling, my brother?
You good?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Life is good. God is good. I can't complain.
Yeah. So talk to us a little about this music thing. You've been in this thing for a minute now. So talk about Jim Jones of 20 years ago, Jim Jones today. Have you noticed anything different in the music industry? Have you tried to do anything different with your sound to keep up with the way the industry is headed?
Oh yeah, the industry.
Jim Jones stirred up a hornet's nest the second he went on Shannon Sharpe's Nightcap podcast and boldly claimed he was more influential than this. This wasn't just some lighthearted comment or a bit of friendly competition, this was Jim putting his entire legacy on the table and daring the world to challenge him. What made it even crazier was the fact that Jim said it with such confidence, as if it were a fact everyone just needed to accept. He didn't flinch, didn't walk it back, and didn't hesitate. He stood 10 toes down on a claim that many in the hip-hop community saw as pure blasphemy. Now, let's be real, Nez is a certified legend. This is a man who dropped *Illmatic*, arguably one of the greatest rap albums of all time. When he was barely out of his teens, Nez didn't just make music, he shaped a whole generation of MCs, and even decades later, he's still headlining sold-out shows, dropping critically acclaimed albums, and rapping like he hasn't missed a beat. So, when Jim Jones claimed he was more influential than this, it wasn't just a hot take, it was a straight-up cultural earthquake. But Jim didn't stop there. He doubled down, then tripled down. He went on Shannon Sharpe's show, and when Shannon tried to check him about that wild statement, Jim kept swinging. He brought up Dipset's cultural impact, claimed Nez wasn't moving the streets like he was, and basically said that while Nez might be a legend, he was yesterday's news. He even went so far as to say that Nez was never really that influential to his generation, outside of maybe his first album. That's bold talk for someone who used to publicly say Nez was one of his idols. And Shannon Sharpe wasn't having it. The energy in the room shifted fast. Shannon, usually cool and composed, came back at Jim with that same fire. He clapped back that this was the biggest podcast Jim had ever been on, reminding him of who really had the platform and power in that moment. What started as a casual conversation quickly turned into a heated back and forth, with both men flexing not just about music but about status, relevance, and legacy. Chad Ochocinco was sitting right there, just watching it unfold like it was a heavyweight title fight, and Jim, instead of dialing it down, turned the whole thing into a gym challenge. That's right, he started talking about who could outwork who in the gym. It went from bars to bench presses. Jim challenged Shannon to a workout showdown, saying he burned him out on the weights or on cardio, however he wanted it. At that point, it wasn't even about Nez anymore. It was about pride, ego, and who could flex the hardest. But while all this was going down, one person was sitting in the shadows, watching it unfold with a smirk. 50 Cent. Now, 50 didn't say a word. He didn't drop a diss track or fire off tweets. He just made one subtle move that sent the internet into a frenzy. He posted a screenshot of a federal document one that mentioned Individual One, a mysterious figure linked to the Tekashi 69 trial. No names, no captions, just vibes. But everyone who knows the story knows what that meant, that individual. One reference had been floating around for years, and many fans believe it was connected to Jim Jones, based on voice recordings played during court proceedings. It was never officially confirmed, and Jim was never charged, but the rumors never died. So when 50 posted that document, it wasn't just a troll, it was a warning shot. It was 50's way of saying, play with me if you want to, but I got receipts and it worked. The internet lit up. People started digging up old wiretaps, court transcripts, interviews, anything that could connect the dots. It was like watching a hip-hop true crime documentary unfold in real time. And through it all, 50 kept quiet, letting the streets do the talking for him. Jim, on the other hand, kept the pressure on. He clapped back at Shannon, posting on social media that Shannon didn't really want smoke, and accusing him of bringing him on the podcast just to go viral. He even called out Shannon's gym challenge, saying he was ready whenever, wherever, however. Jim was acting like he was in the middle of a rap battle, a fitness war, and a legacy fight all at the same time, and then came the fans. Social media exploded with reactions. Some were clowning Jim for even daring to put himself above Nez. Others were giving him props for standing his ground. But a lot of folks were siding with Shannon, thanking him for being the only one bold enough to check Jim in real time. One fan even said, Shannon did what Fat Joe and Jadakiss should have done, shut down that nonsense before it spread. See? This whole thing didn't come out of nowhere. Jim and Nis have had quiet tension for years, going all the way back. To the early 2000s, it all started when Nis randomly dissed Cameron on Hot 97, calling his album trash. That one line set off a firestorm between Nis and Dipset. Jim jumped in headfirst, and from there, it turned into a full-blown beef. Mixtapes, diss tracks, interviews both sides threw heavy shots. At one point, Jim even said he'd smack the Koofy off Nis. That's how deep it got. But somewhere along the way, things cooled off, or at least it looked like they did. Fast forward to now, and Jim is bringing that old tension back to life. But this time, it's different. This time, the stakes are higher. This is no longer just a dope MC, he's a cultural icon. He's got Grammy wins, business deals, tech investments, and a legacy that's been solidified. So, when Jim said he was more influential, people weren't just shocked, they were offended. And while Jim is out here trying to bait Nis into a battle, Nis hasn't said a single word. Not a tweet, not a bar, not even a quote in an interview. That silence speaks volumes. It's not weakness, it's strategy. Every time Jim talks, Nis's legacy grows. Every time Jim throws shade, fans go back and stream Nis's music just to remind themselves of who's really got bars. It's like Jim is accidentally promoting Nis without even realizing it. Meanwhile, 50 Cent is still in the cut, pulling strings like a puppet master. He doesn't have to say much because the internet remembers everything, every post he makes. Every meme he drops, it hits different, especially that individual one reference. That's the kind of thing that makes people pause and wonder what else 50 might have up his sleeve. He's been quiet to quiet, and with 50, that's usually the calm before the storm. What's wild is that Jim really believes he's moving the culture right now. He said it himself, he thinks he's still in the game, still dropping hits, still running circles around other rappers. But when you look at the charts, when you look at the impact, it's clear the culture isn't really moving with him. Nis just had a sold-out run at Madison Square Garden, while Jim is still trying to convince people he matters. Back in 2007, 50 pulled a similar stunt. He brought out Jim Jones and Jules Santana at a G-Unit show during Dipset's internal breakdown. That move made Cameron furious and exposed the cracks in Dipset's armor. Now in 2025, 50's playing that same game, but with a new twist. He's letting Jim talk himself into corners while he quietly reminds people who's really been untouchable all these years. The court documents, the wiretap rumors. The individual one label, none of it ever went away. And 50 knew exactly when to bring it back. Not when Jim was chilling, but when he was loud, bold, and trying to make headlines. It was the perfect setup, and Jim walked right into it. Even fans are starting to question the real motives behind Jim's rants. Is he truly confident in his legacy, or is this just desperation disguised as bravado? Because the more he talks, the more people start pulling receipts. And when those receipts get stacked next to Nis's catalog, the difference is night and day. Jim's posted Jim selfies, flexed on Instagram, challenged Shannon Sharpe to workout battles, and even claimed that older fans arguing with him already lost. But none of that changes the facts. Nis has remained relevant across multiple eras, while Jim has mostly lived off past hits and Dipset nostalgia. And when it comes to influence, it's not just about fashion or street cred, it's about the music, the message, the legacy. And yet, Jim is still out here throwing challenges like he's got something to prove. He said he'd wrap circles around any artist from his era if they dared to step in the booth. But here's the thing, Nis doesn't need to prove anything. He's already done it, over and over again. And that's what's really bothering Jim. The fact that he still has to scream for attention while Nis just lets the music speak. At this point, the debate isn't about bars, it's about respect. Who commands it and who begs for it? Nis doesn't need to respond to Jim because the culture already knows who's who in 50. He's just sitting back watching the fireworks, waiting for the perfect moment to drop another post that sends the internet into a frenzy. So now, everyone's waiting. Will Nis finally respond and shut this down for good? Or will he keep letting Jim talk, knowing every word only boosts his legacy? And what about 50? Will he finally say what he's really thinking? Or will he keep trolling from the shadows, reminding everyone who still runs the game behind the scenes, one way or another, someone's about to get exposed, not just in music, but in reputation, in credibility, and in how the culture remembers them. Because once the dust settles, only one thing will matter: who had the legacy, who had the receipts, and who ended up looking like a clown chasing ghosts. And the longer this plays out, the clearer it becomes who's truly in control of the narrative. Jim Jones might be loud right now, But that volume isn't translating to respect. In fact, starting to sound like noise. The more he talks about being more influential than this, the more people are pulling up side-by-side comparison sales numbers, chart performance, critical acclaim, and cultural milestones, and it's not even close. This has been winning Grammys in recent years, dropping albums like Asterisk King's Disease Asterisk and Asterisk Magic Asterisk that fans and critics alike are praising, and staying relevant without ever needing to chase trends or start drama. Meanwhile, Jim's latest music barely makes a ripple. Even when he drops something new, it often feels like it's riding off controversy or nostalgia instead of standing on its own. And that's the trap he's falling into. He's using outrage as a marketing strategy, hoping the noise brings attention to his music. But instead of winning fans, he's pushing people further away, because when you start attacking legends, you better come with something that backs it up, and Jim just hasn't delivered. And it's not like Jim hasn't had moments. Dipset had a serious run in the early 2000s. They were trendsetters, they had street anthems, and they brought a unique flavor to New York rap. But let's not confuse a moment with a movement. This has sustained greatness for over 30 years. From asterisk-ilmatic asterisk to asterisk it was written asterisk. From asterisk stillmatic asterisk to asterisk life is good asterisk. And then reinventing himself again in his 40s and 50s as influence. That's legacy. That's what timeless looks like. Jim trying to rewrite that history by saying he's more influential is what set Shannon Sharpe off. And rightly so. Shannon, though not a rapper, understands legacy. He spent decades building his own in the NFL and has become one of the most respected voices in sports media. So, when Jim tried to undermine a hip-hop icon like Nas, Shannon couldn't just let that slide. And that's why the clash between the two wasn't just entertaining, it was important. It showed that real ones still care about preserving hip-hop history the right way. That you can't just rewrite the culture to fit your narrative. That you can't erase someone's legacy just to boost your own. Shannon Sharpe stood up for this in a way a lot of folks should have, but didn't. Fat Joe and Jadakiss had the chance, but they let Jim talk wild and left it unchecked. Shannon wasn't going for that. He challenged Jim, pushed back, and reminded him and everyone else why Nas is where he is today. And the irony in all this, Jim once admired Nas deeply. He admitted it himself. He looked up to Nas when he was younger, tried to dress like him, studied his style. That admiration turned into rivalry only once Jim started feeling like he had something to prove. But that admiration doesn't just disappear, it's still there, buried under all the bravado. You can hear it when he talks about asterisk-ilmatic asterisk, when he references Nas's fashion, when he admits Nas had one of the illest albums ever. That kind of respect doesn't come from someone who thinks they're truly above Nas. It comes from someone trying to convince themselves that they belong on the same level. And let's talk about 50 Cent again, because his role in this saga can't be ignored. He didn't need to say Jim Jones's name. He didn't need to post a diss track or do an interview. All he had to do was post that one document, the one that reminded everyone of the individual one label from the Tekashi 69 trial. That's all it took, because with 50, subtlety hits harder than shouting. He lets the receipts do the talking. And those receipts, they're heavy, that federal wiretap. The courtroom testimonies, the fact that Jim was allegedly on tape ordering a hit and somehow walked away untouched, no charges, no consequences, just silence. That's why people are suspicious. That's why the individual one post hit so hard. Because the streets never forgot, and 50 made sure they remembered at the exact right moment. It's a game of chess, not checkers. While Jim is playing loud and messy, 50 is playing cold and calculated. And Nas, he's not even playing. He's just watching from the throne, letting everyone else scramble for relevance while he continues to drop albums, make investments, and elevate the culture. That's real power. And now fans are starting to see through it all. They're seeing that Jim's whole approach is built on trying to stay relevant by dragging others down. They're seeing that Shannon Sharpe isn't just a sports guy, he's someone who cares deeply about truth and respect. And they're seeing that 50 Cent, even in silence, can shake the room with a single post. Jim can keep posting Jim selfies, keep challenging people to work out battles, keep claiming he's more influential, but the numbers don't lie. The culture doesn't lie. And the respect that Nas commands, that's not something you can manufacture. It's earned over time, through impact, consistency, and greatness. And that's what really separates the two. Nas doesn't have to say he's influential. The world says it for him. Jim has to shout it from the rooftops, hoping someone will believe it. But shouting, Louder doesn't make it true, and in a culture that's all about authenticity, that difference matters. So what's next? Will Jim finally realize that the more he talks, the worse he looks? Will he keep chasing Niz and Shannon for clout? Or will he focus on making music that speaks for itself? Because right now, his legacy is being shaped more by his antics than his artistry. And that's a dangerous path for any artist to take. And as for 50 Cent, he's not done. You can feel it. This wasn't just a one-off post. This was a warning. And if Jim keeps poking the bear, 50 might just drop something that can't be walked back. Something that changes the entire narrative. Fans are already digging through old interviews, old music, old court documents. The blogs are watching. The streets are talking, and Jim is on center stage. Whether he likes it or not, the truth is, this isn't just a rap beef. This is about legacy. It's about who gets remembered and how. And this doesn't have to engage because he's already won. Jim is fighting for relevance, and 50, he's reminding everyone that in this game, you don't need to shout to make an impact sometimes. Silence is the loudest statement of all, and in the end, when people look back on this moment, they won't remember the Jim challenges or the podcast rants. They'll remember that Jim tried to come for a king and ended up reminding everyone why the crown was never his to begin with. This is the kind of moment that separates legends from loud talkers. And whether Jim realizes it or not, the more he talks, the more he proves that legacy isn't about claiming greatness, it's about showing it. And Niz? He's been showing it for over 30 years. No response needed.